I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the Filthy Capitalist option. As Sori says, 125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of the alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. 125 gets you there. You do that 3 times, and then get mashed down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at insori@gmail.com, and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon, and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
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 That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in at Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go on the village, facebook.com/Vin and Sori. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy our merch.
Buy our merch indeed. A child shall lead them.
Buy our merch.
Yes, dear listener. Yes, dear listener. Yes, dear listener. We are in the midst of the Magnificent Seven.
Live stream.
Live stream.
Brought to you by 7 of our Discord members who got together and made a stream.
Multiple ways to get your song reviewed, dear listener. Multiple ways.
Yeah.
Okay, the next song.
So up next is a song picked by Misery Biz. It's Ashenspire, The Law of Asbestos.
Ashenspire, I think.
Ashenspire.
We did an interview with Ashenspire, actually. Shout out to the homie. It was a very good interview. Dude's like a very, very like outside the box thinker.
Your memory's amazing.
Well, yeah, we've also forgotten people that we've done interviews with, but that's a different story. Tragedy.
Requested by Yul Brynner as Chris Adams.
Yul Brynner!
Yul Brynner.
It's the guy that didn't, he was Pharaoh in the 10 Commandments.
Oh.
Pharaoh.
Okay, well, good.
He was Pharaoh in the 10 Commandments.
Very happy to hear that.
What?
It's just so weird, like, when the majority of my life was spent, like, not being in the world and understanding what goes on.
Yeah, but you saw the 10 Commandments.
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't have remembered that. So I assume that when something comes up, I don't assume that I forgot it. I assume that I was never told it.
Oh. Yeah, you'd be blaming your parents for stuff.
Yeah,
like, I'm pretty
people.
sure you saw the 10 Commandments.
Yeah, we definitely did. We saw it multiple times. We just couldn't watch the ending.
Yeah.
That was banned.
What was wrong with the ending?
I remember with they were dancing with the golden calf.
Oh,
none of that. They're dancing.
Yeah, just imagine it in your head. I mean, honestly, like what they put on that movie was probably definitely less graphic than
what you were thinking,
than what you would have in your head.
Well, yeah, probably.
I mean, because the KJV says the people of Israel rose up to play.
To play.
So you're a kid. You're like, well, why is that a problem?
I was like, I bet I know.
You knew as a kid?
Well, when I don't know how old I was when I read it.
See, I wouldn't have known that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'd have been like,
I knew it must have been some shit because they reacted big time when that calf came out.
Yeah,
everybody had to turn around.
Yeah, I just focused on the idolatry as a kid. I was like, oh, God has a problem with playing. I'm like, I'm screwed because I'm gonna play, bro. I'm playing football and playing
Maybe
baseball.
I'm in the wrong religion.
I'm like, I'm going to hell. It's fine. I'm just not gonna be bored. All right. Having said that, heresy.
Gunslinger, requested by Yul Brynner. As Chris Adams, a Cajun gunslinger.
Jesus.
This is first track from Ashenspire's sophomore album, Hostile Architecture.
Ooh.
Guesting musician in the track is a Trebor from Botanist playing hammered dulcimer. You know what even that sentence meant.
Oh my gosh.
What?
Go ahead.
Oh man, I just watched a documentary about the workers in Qatar World Cup, and this song really has some lines that fit. The scaffolding holding the bread from their mouths as it rouses the worker to sell themselves short. Both foundation and cornerstone, and it are entirely bereft of support. Wow.
All right. Well,
The Law of Asbestos.
The Law of Asbestos, dear listener.
Let's check it out.
Our Ashenspire Magnificent 7. You guys know what it is. That's what I used to say all the time in the hood. You know what it is? Like, what are you talking about, bro? We don't know what you're talking about, my guy. You already know what it is. Ashenspire in this bitch. Let's go. The Law of Asbestos. There was one song or band, I don't know, but it was like, the saw is the law. I'm like, that's a freaking...
The saw is the law?
The saw is the law.
Why? Because people get killed?
I don't know. I just thought that was one of the most badass titles I've ever heard in my life. The saw is the law.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Ashenspire, let's go. Hydrate, ladies and gents.
gutter. Never 3 months to the peak. Another day to grind your fingers for the simple right to eat. Always 3 months to the gutter. Never 3 months to the crown. Another deep breath of asbestos in a God-forsaken town. Always 3 months to the gutter. Never 3 months to the top. Another set of fucking homeless fights beside another empty shop. Always 3 months to the gutter. Never 3 months to a cent. This is not a house of amateurs. This is done with full intent. With full intent.
What a piece of art that is. Holy shit. That is right up my alley. I love stuff like that. Okay, when it first started, I was like, I don't know about that vocal style. But then the more he got into it, it reminded me, again, babe, you have got to at least watch that scene on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I always bring it up, and you never know what the hell I'm talking about.
I never do. I don't know what you're talking about.
So I don't know what year. This came out in 2022. Okay, then he bit off. That is the style of that song in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the old one. But I don't know if they bit off someone else. But it was like that sort of like stuff is progressively getting more intense the more he's going, and the voice is all like all kind of crazy. Like, do you think that we could? I would love to do that in one of our songs. You know, I've always been a fan of that. Like,
what, Rising Action?
No, like the chaotic sound of that vocal style, just like In This Moment does that, where her voice just sounds like there's a problem.
I mean, you're the vocalist.
Yeah, I know. You think that we could come up with something?
I keep telling you, you're the vocalist, so go for it.
Yeah.
But it was kind of avant-garde. It was definitely avant-garde at the beginning. Like the musicianship was very kind of, and then like in the second half of the song, they brought it together.
That is a very good explanation.
And that was brilliant. But see, we've listened to, I forgot the name of the band, but what's that band that did Sola Fide?
Good.
There's a band that did Sola Fide.
You know what's funny? I can picture the thumbnail.
It's BM fans. It's one of BM fans' favorite bands. It was the one that introduced me actually to Deathspell Omega.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I wasn't trained with Deathspell Omega, then I wouldn't have been able to ride out the first half of the song.
Yeah, the ride scene.
The first half of the song in Death, was very avant-garde and very kind of like, and then they brought it together, especially with that lead riff, the ding 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 ding. Like, man, they did such a really good job. These guys,
they didn't waste the topic either.
Yeah, man, these guys. it just really brings the it's one of the more fascinating things about music is that when I first started the channel, I thought capitalism had some weaknesses, but I figured, yeah, I mean, you can redeem it.
Oh, I thought so too, yeah.
And being introduced to Marxist thought made me say, no, this is an irredeemable
we got to go with something else.
And the reason it's an irredeemable system is because it feeds into the most basest aspects of human sinfulness, which is selfishness, deception,
Greed.
the desire for power, the desire for, the ego, all those things. And the people at the top have absolutely zero motivation in any way, shape, or form of changing things. And the people at the bottom, who are the majority, do not have the political power to compete with those people. Because I actually heard it first from Dr. Umar Johnson, actually.
Oh,
He
really?
said, capitalism and democracy cannot coexist. I was like, damn, bro. And it's kind of true. If you talk about campaign finance reform and things of that nature and all these wars, like 90% of the shit that our government does, like 90% of us are completely against. But it's like, everybody's like, wait a second, like, okay, we're not cool with Russia invading those people, but $100 billion? Like, why are we the ones doing all that shit? And then you got regular Americans that are like getting evicted, can't shop, can't, gas, all that shit. And then you find out, well, this inflation doesn't even have to be to this degree. It's the guys at the top that are inflating their prices because they want another 2% in their margins. I just got done listening to a Jimmy Dore thing. It was Levi's. Levi's, they did layoffs like everybody else, but the dude, the head guy or whatever, made $43 million just on stock, whatever, as he was laying these people off. And he was acting like he was some nice, righteous dude. We did it, we laid them off humanely and all the rest, which is okay. Like, but it's like, dude, 43 million, like, you couldn't tell yourself, like, bro, I'm sure if you do your P&L and you annuitize 43 million, you could have saved a whole bunch of jobs just on your salary alone, dude.
I know.
Like,
and for what?
Exactly.
That's the thing that I keep thinking about is like, what does it matter? Like, what is so important? Like you, Trump with this golden toilet, like, that's crazy. But like, I know that everybody has areas where what we do with our money is crazy. But at the same time, like, when you hear stuff like this, like the way that it was explained in this song, like, you could just feel it.
Yeah,
like, when I see people, like older people that are like working and they're not going to be retiring anytime soon, and they've worked there, like he said, when he was talking about your fingers, another day to grind your fingers for the simple right to eat. Another deep breath of asbestos in a godforsaken town. Like, that stuff really, like, for me, hit home because my dad builds houses, and a lot of he would build houses from scratch, but also he would like revamp houses, so if it needed an update or whatever. So he used a lot of asbestos. Like, a lot of times he was ripping that out, and it's...
Who is this?
My dad. He's dealt with tons of asbestos. Honestly, I'm very grateful that my father is still alive, but I am surprised that he breathed in that. He was cutting it, so it gets airborne. When you start cutting it, you're not supposed to cut it. You're supposed to bag it up, and you're supposed to bring it and get it, whatever, but it would take too much time, and, so he was just cutting it, bagging it, and, like, breathing
like when we think about, like, what we're going to do with, we started a baby formula company, yada, yada, yada. Like, that's, like, one of the main... Because your grandfather died in a shop, right?
Yeah, that's what
he died.
He had his heart attack in there, yeah.
And he had to fight for, like, what, a penny raise?
Oh, well, I found out he fought for the raise. They never did give it to him.
They didn't even give him the penny?
It was a half a penny that he was asking for, and they wouldn't even give it to him.
And he died in the fight. Like, that shit to me, like...
Because they knew he was such a loyal worker, he was going to go nowhere. They were right.
That, to me, is like...
That's insulting, though. You won't even give... I thought they gave him a half a penny raise.
I don't know what's worse.
That they wouldn't even give a half penny?
Like, the last... I think it was an Ashenspire song. I'm not sure, but it was like... It was talking about the the first kind of guys who were working in the mines, the breaker boys or whatever, and they fought like mad, and they only gave them like a penny and a half raise.
Is that the ones where they were abusing them?
Yeah,
too?
you
They
had the
kick
priest.
people, hit
You
them
had
with
the priest
shovels?
like beating the hell out of protesters. All not protesters, but the union guys, and like
You can't treat people like that.
there's that's the thing. Like there was this priest that Panopticon. There was a priest, Catholic dude, when the rise of Marxism happened, and of course, you know, the majority report on Christians is that Marxism is an anti-God, anti-Christ movement. And of course, he said religion, the opiate of the masses, blah, blah, blah. But this priest said that essentially that Marxism was, emerged as a result of the church's failure to fight for economic justice. And instead of fighting for economic justice, which is our marching orders, we're supposed to, there's clear statements about economic justice, particularly in the New Testament. And there are also clear threats of death, like the death penalty, if you don't give the worker his wages. Where it's like, and it's interesting because from a New Testament perspective, there are images of Jesus being violent. One is the money changers at the temple, economic issue. Two, the threat that the book of James gives, which is when James says the judge is at the door and all the rest of it, he's referring to Christ. So in both instances,
the judge is at the door and what?
I'll show you in the book of James. It's James chapter 1. We're talking about economic injustice.
Yeah.
So, like, my point is, aside from the book of Revelation, in both instances, when you see Jesus getting violent, or people say that Jesus is going to enact some sort of violence, both of them have to do with economic injustice. And it's like,
well,
it's absolutely insane to me that, like, we have supported this as Christians, evangelicalism, like. Is completely bought into capitalism as sort of like they've canonized
capitalism. Yeah, they have. They absolutely have. Yeah, it's crazy though because just pull back. Like I've been thinking a lot about this topic as well. I don't know. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. The idea that we would consume away while part of the world is suffering, because I can't stop thinking about those Yemenis children. Do we support any kids from Yemen? From Yemen? Is it Yemen?
Yeah. Yeah. Our patrons have, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know if one of them was from Yemen. But anyway, so I'm like thinking about that and I'm like, okay, if obviously let me just speak from my worldview. God creates all lost people. We're all on this planet together. And because we're all creations of his, then we're all related in a way. And like from God's point of view, to see like some people sitting there and just like consuming their life away or putting a bunch of money into savings and like not helping the overall, like, so if I saw one of my kids sitting on the couch and just like gorging themselves with all this food while one of my other kids was over there crying because they were hungry, I'd be like, what are you doing? But that's what we're doing on a mass scale. And we're not just like I understand why people would do that for like siege warfare, but this isn't even siege warfare. This is just, we don't give a fuck. We don't care. We're not even thinking about that. The majority of the day, nobody cares about those Yemenis children, those mothers and fathers that have to watch their children die because there's not enough food.
Well, they don't look like us.
Yeah, I was going to tell you the other day.
That's the little non-racist white lady said on about Ukraine. This is not like those savages over there in Afghanistan. These people look like us. Oh, okay. That's all right. I'll figure it out. Go ahead.
No.
This is a passage I was talking to. Come now, you who are rich, weep and wail over the misery to come upon you. Your riches have rotted and moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver are corroded. Their corrosion will testify against you and consume your flesh like fire. You have hoarded treasure.
So metal.
You have hoarded treasure in the last days. Look, the wages you withheld from the workmen who mowed your fields are crying out against you.
Wow,
the cries
that's
of the harvesters have reached the Lord of hosts. By the way, Lord of hosts, anytime you see Lord of hosts, that is God as a warrior. That's like Lord of the Army.
I was going to say armies.
Yeah, it's actually, I think the KJV has it as armies. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's God in battle array. You have lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the righteous who do not resist you. And then he says, be patient, brothers, until the Lord's coming.
Oh.
And everybody universally understands the Lord's coming as the Lord Jesus. So this threat to these rich people, it's Jesus is going to come and fuck you guys up for what you did to those people. And we were reading the Wars of the Jews. And I'll tell you, this got fulfilled.
That is well worth a listen.
Read Josephus' Wars of the Jews, because this was fulfilled literally. What do I mean by that? Well, here's what would happen. The Romans had surrounded the city of Jerusalem. All the aristocracy, everybody was trapped inside. Mm-hmm. And then people started trying to leave. Right. Oh, and as they were leaving, before because eventually the Romans says, nobody's leaving. We're going to... So everybody... After a while, they would just crucify you and then hang you outside the thing, right? But prior to that, dudes were trying to leave. Now, the Christians had already gone out. That's a different story. These guys are trying to leave. Well, what happened was, what would you do if you were part of the mega rich? What they started doing was the mega rich would start swallowing these gold coins, and then they would go and then they would whatever. Well, a Roman soldier saw that happening. So when this Jewish person came up to escape, the soldier took him aside and cut him open while he was alive and took his coins. And so the other soldiers were like, holy shit, where'd you get all them coins from? He explained what happened. So now when these rich people were trying to escape, all of them, if you were looked upon as a rich person, they would gut you alive and take your shit. Mm-hmm. Like, so when it says your gold and silver are corroded, their corrosion will testify against you and consume your flesh. Yep. Like fire, that literally happened. Ugh. Now, I don't want to get too technical, but James was the apostle to the Jewish people, and he was stationed in Jerusalem. Peter, James, and John were stationed in Jerusalem. The rest of the disciples and Paul, they were going all over the place. Don't worry about it. The kids got that. I don't care. Okay? So the point is, the point is, this was literally fulfilled. Like, this literally happened to people, and the rich especially got it the worst in that situation. So when he says you've fattened yourself in the day of slaughter, that's literally what happened. Now, when you look at Marxism, there was, Marx basically advocated for violence. But he basically
Can you just
said,
give me a little capsule again? I get them mixed up. Which one is Marxism?
Marx was the father of Marxism. The workers own the means of production. Workers of the world unite. Yeah. That Das Kapital book. It's very thick. It's very hard. I had to read the book 4 or 5. I'm on my 6th.
But it's violence, and that's why people are like, they're a Marxist, right?
Part of it was violence, because if you think about the way that these people were living, and then you look at these rich people and all these unfair wages and things like that, it creates a sort of deep resentment. And so when you get an organizing principle around people who are deeply resentful, and they say, wait a second, there's 99 of us and 1 of you. Right? Like, this is before, major technology. I mean, one of the reasons, in my view, for the defense budget, is to make it so that the 99 could never really challenge the 1. Right? So think about it. Like, back in the 1800s, they had a little rifle, you had a little rifle, and so if you had 99 guys versus 1 guy at a rifle, he's going to win, and so there was some sort of parity. Now, all they have to do is cordon off your little city, and you're finished.
That's it. Yeah.
Because they got B-21s, they got ICBMs, they got all types of shit that the average person, even a very affluent average person, could not procure. Mm-hmm. And so now that gap is so the American capitalist, like, no. So like, on the one hand, our defense budget is foreign so that we can expand the empire, but on the other hand, I'm completely convinced that our defense spending and why we innovate on weapons and things of that nature is to ensure that group of people, that regular people, could never do a violent overthrow of them. So that's out the window. That's not going to happen. People say, oh, Vietnam, blah, blah, blah. There were ROE in Vietnam, rules of engagement. Ask anybody that was there if they would have released those, because, there was the propaganda, the Vietnamese propaganda that was massively effective. You had Jane Fonda, all the rest of these people. And so as the war in Vietnam continued, the ROE became more and more stringent because people at home were saying, what the fuck? That's why when these guys came home, baby killers, yada, yada, yada. If we ever got into a hellscape where the U.S. government said, yo, we're going to kill you, and they're not worried about propaganda, because if they were to turn their guns on their own people, they would massacre you, bro.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why. It's like, the irony is like, our tax dollars are going to ensure that these people never have the danger of the people rising up against them. And so, like, just recently, shout out to Carlos Oviedo. Just recently, I should have covered this in the Middle America, where these railway workers were trying to. It was something ridiculous, like paid leave of absence, like paid sick leave or something. So they decided they were going to unionize, and Biden and the Republicans got together and basically signed a bill that made that like illegal for them to do. Like it's just unbelievably crazy.
Yeah, but I thought that they gave them something else, but they knew that the other bill was going to get shut down, so they put the most important information in the bill that got shut down. Did you see?
I'm not sure. I didn't really look at it because I'm like, here we go.
And basically, that they did it just to what do you guys call that? Posterize. Basically, when you're just trying to make it look like you're doing a good thing.
No, everybody
but you knew it was going to get shut down in the back end.
No. That's a student loan thing that Biden did. But
it was just the show that was on yesterday. But okay.
What they did to those railway workers, like, it was clear, like, y'all ain't unionizing nothing.
I'm pretty sure it was about
and those guys, like, and women, like, if they really, there's nothing they can do about it. To get, it's over. Yeah. Like they completely shut that down. The government got involved in union busing. And honestly, like, if those guys really were able to do that, it would have brought America to its knees. They had leverage, and Biden just completely, but it has nothing to do with, it's not like Biden, if we had a Republican in office, he'd have done the same thing. Y'all know that. But, it's just like, it's just crazy to me, dude. Like, so this song is like, it's deep, man, because I don't believe, let me see here. Let me see what he said here.
We're working really hard at all of our businesses to make it so that way our kids have jobs and everybody's well taken care of. And obviously beyond that, we want to be able to do stuff not just for our community, but also for the world. Whatever we can do with the money that we have, we want to be able to do that. And so, like, hearing this song, like, for me, it was extremely emotional to see that people put other people in this situation where they don't have, like, that has been the story. That has been how it's always been. You will work until you die. And that's it. Like, you work and you work and you work. And it's always kept at a place where nobody can ever get ahead. And then we used to have just the men working, but then the women, wanted to enter the workforce. And once women did...
Well, they had to because of World War II.
Right,
it's not like they wanted to, they had to.
Right,
then
that's
dudes
true,
are coming
they
back,
had to.
Dudes are coming back trying to rule the roost, and girls are like, what the fuck? We've been holding up the whole country. What y'all on?
But then now you have double the amount of people in the workforce when they came back, and so wages went down. Now it requires 2 people in a household, and people are just making bare minimum. Like, how can people get by and ever really... He said... never to get to the top, like, always 3 months to the gutter, never 3 months to the peak. Like, it's true, like, the majority of everybody is always ready to, it's paycheck to paycheck for a lot of people. The student loan thing, that's a fucking joke. I couldn't even believe that. When you talked about that the other day, and said that they can never claim bankruptcy,
I forgot.
That is always there.
I forgot, I
didn't know that.
I forgot what, the number is. It's basically like the average American does not have enough resources for a $1,000 emergency. Like, the thing that gets me, it's like, okay, human nature, blah blah blah, but I'm like, yo, American evangelicals specifically have canonized capitalism to the point where
It's true.
I had somebody say to me, "That's Marxism, Vin," and I said, "Yeah." They're like, they started asking me if I was a Christian. They started asking questions. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
Wow.
Because I don't hold to your economic theory, I'm not a Christian? Are you
Man,
insane?
that's so crazy.
Like, what the fuck?
And you have, like, economic theory is in the scriptures. Like, you can find how it should go.
Well,
Like,
shout out to
what
Delaney.
the biblical economic theory would be.
Well, look. The vast majority of the time that the Old Testament talks about slavery, it's talking about debt slavery, and the conditions are almost exactly similar to what the fuck is happening right now. They're actually worse. There's
Well,
no
what do you mean?
jubilee. There's no jubilee. There's no cancellation of debt. There's none of that shit. You know what I'm saying? For the average person, you got bankruptcy, but that ends up fucking you up for the rest of your life, credit wise. So, but there was no. So in the Old Testament, like every 7 years, your debt would get whatever. But there were all these laws around how you were supposed to treat the people that were working for you. Remember, you're in an agrarian society. Everybody had their own little business. So if you fell on hard times, they didn't have a category like work for somebody, you're a boss. So the only terminology you used was slave. That's what happened. So it's essentially an employer-employee relationship.
That's true, yeah.
And it's crazy because people are like, "Oh my God, the Old Testament talks about beating somebody." It's like, yeah, if you damage the person that's working for you, then all of their debt got canceled. Can you imagine? Like, that's how OSHA came about, was
Yep.
because you had these insane working conditions.
And the pressure that they put on workers to not say if they got
Kids
injured.
like Marx was like, he was brilliant because he's like, you got these little 7-year-old girls working naked because all their little frilly dresses and shit would get caught in the machines, and the girls would get scalped like alive and all. And Marx was just like pressing on people like, what the fuck? And like, if you were to compare what would happen to that person in I'm bringing up the Old Testament, which is not God's ideal. I think everybody universally agrees. It's like these people prior to Marx would have had a better time in the Old Testament than the Western economic system. Because for dynamic equivalency, you would have had to basically financially support that family for the rest of your life. You would probably get the death penalty. Because in the Old Testament, if you didn't put a parapet above your roof, the little guardrails around your roof, and somebody fell off the roof and died, you were held liable.
That's right, you were.
And that's just your regular life, much less being an employee, employer, slave master. I don't care what you want to call it, because all of us.
Because you didn't do what you could to protect human life.
I mean, think about, like, I don't even want to get into it because, we're blessed to be able to work for ourselves and work for you guys. But I will say one thing, like, I was a kid, 19, 20 years old. I got promoted to being a supervisor. I had people that could have been my grandparents and my parents, and they had to ask me to go to the bathroom. That's not slavery. When these people are on the clock, they were absolutely my slaves. I never took a lunch break. Never. I worked straight through the thing. Because this was my only shot. I didn't, I barely had a high school diploma. I got this opportunity. I think my promotion got me a whopping, I went from $9.50 an hour to $12 an hour. And it was me and Shorty and our first kid.
You went from 9 to 12?
I went from 9 to 12 in my promotion, but like, people had to ask me to go to the fucking bathroom who could have been my parents. I eventually said, guys, I said nobody, I'd have my first initial team meeting with my new teammates, and I'd say, listen, nobody's gonna ask me to do that. Just tell me you're leaving. I don't even want to know why.
Yeah.
Just tell me you're leaving. You'll come back. Don't abuse it. We'll be good. And once you know it, nobody. The young people abuse it. I'm not gonna lie. The young people abuse. I'm not gonna lie.
So what did you do? Were you
I
able
didn't do a
to
fucking
reel
thing.
it in, or?
No, I didn't do it. You know why? Because they were producing. You know, a lot of this shit, like, it becomes like people start forgetting themselves. Like, they have all these titles and shit. So because you have a title, like, it becomes an ego thing. Like, oh, you were late and I can't tell you how many times I heard people say, I told you to be back here, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, y'all ain't my fucking kids, bro. So I always had the worst absenteeism. I always had the worst, what they call efficiency.
Kids don't even ask to use the bathroom. So it's
I
not even like treating them like kids. It's worse.
But I mean, think about our school system. It starts them off early.
I know. I agree.
It starts them off early. The school system teaches them to be nice, good capitalist cogs in the machine and shit.
No, they thought that's true.
It's
Those
just
kids
evil.
don't move to the next thing till the bell rings.
It's just
they have to ask to use the bathroom.
It's absolutely evil.
They have homework overtime. It's really crazy.
It's slavery, and for a religion that says that our Messiah came to proclaim liberty to the captives, you got to expand your mind as to what. Yeah. That's why it's important for me to explain to people what Old Testament slavery was in the Maine. I'm not trying to mount an apologetic argument. I'm trying to get people to see we're doing worse.
Yeah.
Average American, Forbes magazine says the average American dies $20,000 in debt. And we've got this great economic system. I keep hearing capitalism has risen people. Man, it's risen people. I agree.
A few.
It's also raised up an entire slave class of people. Yep. It's also it's as it rose people up from the bottom to the middle class, it also has risen up an entire slave class. That's a fact. And things like COVID and things like that make that obviously true and impossible to deny. It's just absolutely horrible. Shout out to the Wacky Tour. I haven't seen you in a while, buddy. Every time I hear songs like this, it's infuriating, but I love it. It's a 9.5 for me.
This one's a 10 for me. It was just the way that he did it, the emotion that he put into it, the lyrics themselves, where it went to. It's a 10.
And look, I don't believe that we have found the perfect economic system. I think there are serious problems with socialism, and I also believe I'm not Pollyannish about it, that human sinfulness is going to infiltrate every economic system we have, and so we got to find inventive ways for checks and balances to manage corruption. Yeah. But capitalism makes it so that you are encouraged to be as corrupt as you possibly can. And when you combine that with a democracy where you can buy off politicians, forget it. You're locked in forever.
You know what's even crazier? So in our biblical theology, you have, just because stuff is going bad for you, it doesn't mean that you've done something wrong. Like, it just could be the journey that God is bringing you on. Right. But what they teach a lot of times is that prosperity means that you're doing things that are right. Correct. So you can be walking all over these people, giving them barely no money, making these people suffer beneath you, but you're rich and you can look at it like God has prospered you. But it's a lie. God is prospering you, but you're being a horrible steward of what he's given you.
It's unbelievable. Like, the rich are never, ever, ever turn out well in the New Testament. Never. No. God told a parable on a rich guy. He ends up in hell. Jesus tells another parable about a rich guy. He's like, oh, my business is going great. I'm going to turn down this barn and build bigger ones. I'm going to get more money. And then God shows up to him that night and says, I'm going to kill you today.
This night, your life is required of you.
Yeah, Jesus showed up. You silly as hell, bro. I'm going to take your life away from you. Then who's going to get all your shit? Mm-hmm. But then American Christians take that and go, yup, capitalism is the best economic system. Okay. All right. Okay.
On that note, we love the Christians. Moving right along.
Yeah, those are our folks, so we love them.
But there definitely needs to be some change. All right, you guys, we're coming up with another song.
Hey, listen. The last thing I'll say about this is, America is flooded with more guns than people. So keep fucking with people. I'm not advocating for it, and I'm sure the bad guys would win, but there's going to be a lot of blood on the ground if we don't fix this shit. Period. I'm sorry, man, but
I thought you were bringing up that point to be like, look how terrible it is. We have more guns than people on this planet.
Nah, man, I'm just saying, it's unwise. And, I've heard a couple of these, quote, radical Marxists, and they're like, violence is the only answer. And I don't know.
What do you mean?
Well, because what motivation does a capitalist have to stop being this way to people, treating people like this?
Well, that's why he has to have a change inside of his heart. Because if you force people by the sword, That doesn't necessarily fix the problem.
Yeah, we ended slavery that way.
Well, I don't know. There was other places that were doing it without the sword.
I understand that.
So we could have done it without the sword.
I understand that, but America has our economic system is uniquely inhumane.
Nice.
I mean, think about it. Those guys over in England, they weren't hardcore capitalists.
Right.
It was the Americans who were capitalists.
Right, and we had a harder time.
So the English were able to get rid of the scourge of slavery without a big giant bloodletting episode, but we weren't. I don't agree with these people, and honestly, we would probably some of the people that they would target or whatever. So I'm not agreeing with it. But I'm just saying, in the context of being a Christian and understanding the concept of national judgment and taking the threats of the scripture seriously, again, for the millionth time, God has never threatened a nation because there's gay people in it.
Right.
God has never threatened a nation because gay people decided to get married. God has never threatened a nation because people who were born men start wearing dresses. He's never said, I'm going to fucking kill all of you for doing that. Mm-hmm. He has done that, though, for people who are not good to the orphan, the widow, the children, immigrants, people who mistreat immigrants, like raping them at the border and then forcefully aborting and then forcefully giving these people hysterectomies. If you really believe there's a God in heaven and we treat people like that, then you should be surprised if you wake up tomorrow and there's not 100 million people dead because of bloodletting. The shit that we do to people.
Right. Yeah. Yikes.
On that bright note, we will see you on the other side of the break, dear listener. Vin out.
Sorry out.
Gone. Fucking people. We shall return.